I've been on drugs. I've been through hell. You know what I'm saying? I did most of the movies on cocaine.
Cheating on his wife. Flirty texts to female fans exposed. Twice arrested for carrying guns at the airport. Mike Epps. He once made the world laugh on screen, but off-screen he turned into Hollywood's bitter punchline. Scandal after scandal, secret after secret, tore Mike Epps' reputation apart. This is no longer the funny clown audiences once adored. This is the portrait of a conflicted Mike Epps, a man who is both a multi-million-dollar star and someone marked by stains that can never be washed away. And the haunting question remains, how long can Hollywood's spotlight hide the truth? Before he was a star, Mike Epps was just a lost kid, wandering streets ruled by violence and poverty. Mike Epps was born on November 18, 1970, in Indianapolis, Indiana. He grew up in the poor neighborhood of West Indianapolis, an area plagued by violence, drugs, and poverty throughout the 1970s and 1980s. His father, Tommy Epps, left the family early, leaving the burden of raising the children to his mother, Mary Reed, a woman who worked odd jobs just to put food on the table. Mike often witnessed his mother struggling with bills while outside the window lay a world of turmoil and uncertainty on the streets. From an early age, Epps was known as a troublemaker. At just 16, he was expelled from high school for causing disruptions. In an interview, Mike admitted that he had once been involved in small-time drug dealing in the neighborhood, just to survive, as he put it. Growing up surrounded by gangs and crime, he learned one harsh truth: either you become the tough guy or you become the joke for everyone else. Ironically, it was laughter that saved him. At 15, Mike began trying amateur comedy at small gatherings with friends. He mimicked voices and told street stories that had everyone cracking up. One teacher recalled that Epps could silence the entire class with a single joke, though he was just as quickly punished for talking too much. Eventually, when life at home and school became unbearable, Mike's mother moved him to Brooklyn, New York when he turned 20. It was there that Epps discovered the doorway to a brighter destiny. Hollywood opens its doors. Mike Epps and the ambition beyond laughter. After a childhood spent in the shadows of Indianapolis, Mike Epps left his hometown and began testing his luck with stand-up comedy. At first, it was nothing more than performing in dingy bars where the audience could boo or even throw bottles if a joke didn't land. Yet that brutal environment sharpened Epps' instincts for survival on stage, make them laugh or be eaten alive. His real break came when he landed a spot on Def Comedy Jam, the legendary show that had launched names like Martin Lawrence and Bernie Mac. That appearance turned Mike from a nobody into a rising face in the American comedy scene. The true turning point came in 2000. Ice Cube handpicked Epps to replace Chris Tucker in the sequel to the legendary Friday franchise. His character Day Day in Next Friday turned him into a star overnight. The film was made for just $11 million USD, but it went on to gross more than $57 million USD at the US box office, nearly 6 times its budget. The massive profit not only proved the enduring power of the Friday brand, but also cemented Mike Epps as the go-to name for those reckless but charming comedic roles on screen. 2 years later, Epps returned in Friday After Next 2002. Though it didn't make as big a splash as its predecessor, the film still pulled in $33.5 million USD against a $10 million USD budget. In just 3 years, Mike had gone from a stand-up comic on small stages to a familiar face in Hollywood, commanding higher paychecks and landing roles in a string of films and television projects. From there, his career path widened. He wasn't confined to comedy anymore. He branched into action drama and even producing his own shows. More importantly, Epps refused to be boxed in as just the funny guy. Specials like Don't Take It Personal 2015 and Only One Mic 2019 on Netflix proved that he could write, perform, and sell out massive venues like DR Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. He even took risks with indie films like Meet the Blacks 2016. Produced on a shoestring budget of about $900,000 USD, the film grossed nearly $9 million USD, a tenfold return on investment showcasing Mike's commercial instincts alongside his comedic talent. But the spotlight only told half the story. The applause could be loud, but never loud enough to drown out the whispers of scandal. Behind the radiant smile lay a turbulent personal life where one dirty secret after another began surfacing, tearing apart the reputation Mike Epps had worked so hard to build. Mike Epps Exposed. The secrets that shattered his reputation. A broken marriage with Michelle McCain. The first downfall. In 2006, Mike Epps walked down the aisle with Michelle McCain, an actress who had appeared in The Fighting Temptations. On the red carpet, they looked like the perfect couple, radiant, glamorous, and celebrated within the Black Hollywood community as a symbol of lasting love. They appeared together at award shows and major film events, leaving the impression of a picture-perfect family. But that glow only existed under the camera lights. Behind closed doors, the marriage was slowly rotting away. Mike Epps was often absent, tied up with film shoots and comedy tours. That distance grew into a gap that could no longer be bridged. The breaking point came in early 2016. Michelle McCain filed for divorce after 11 years of marriage with a damning accusation Mike had cheated, betrayed her trust, and chose the spotlight over his family. The story exploded in the press because just before that, tabloids had published shocking screenshots. Mike Epps sending private Twitter messages to a young woman calling her cutie and asking to meet up. The bitter twist was that it was his wife who discovered the messages because she happened to follow the same account. Michelle uncovered the entire conversation, and within hours, screenshots of the messages spread across social media. Entertainment outlets ran screaming headlines, "Mike Epps exposed, flirty messages to female fan behind his wife's back." The image of the fun-loving husband that audiences adored collapsed with a single click. People no longer laughed at his comedy on screen. They laughed at his private life, a bitter punchline, where Mike Epps became the unwilling star of his own scandal. The divorce was anything but amicable. It quickly turned into a brutal legal battle. In early 2017, Michelle McCain shocked the public by demanding between $109,000 and $118,468 USD per month in combined spousal and child support. Her reasoning to maintain the standard of living their family had grown accustomed to and to cover private school tuition for their two daughters. The staggering figure immediately became tabloid fodder. Mike Epps hit back, calling the request completely unrealistic. His lawyers argued that high income did not mean unlimited expenses. He countered with an offer of about $26,000 USD per month. From there, the courtroom turned into a battlefield over what truly defined a reasonable lifestyle after divorce. By September 2017, the final ruling was handed down. The court ordered Mike Epps to pay $25,000 USD per month in spousal support for 6.5 years to end if Michelle remarried, plus $15,000 USD per month in child support for their two daughters, along with full tuition costs for private school. On top of that, Michelle was awarded a share of residuals from major films Epps had appeared in, such as The Hangover, Hancock, and Girls Trip. Court documents revealed that at the time, Epps was earning around $3.5 million USD per year, an enormous sum for any comedian. Yet in court, he claimed he was facing financial difficulties and tried to minimize his support payments as much as possible. The contradiction was too juicy for the media to ignore. Tabloids mocked him mercilessly. Mike Epps drives a Rolls-Royce to parties, but says he can't afford to support his kids. Talk shows used him as a textbook example of Hollywood's deadbeat dad. The image of the funny clown who once brought laughter to millions crumbled in an instant. In the public's eyes, Mike Epps was no longer a beloved comedian. He had become a symbol of infidelity, betrayal, and selfishness toward his own family. But less than 3 years later, he was already with another woman. Remarriage with Kira Robinson, a $1 million wedding, and lingering questions. In 2019, Mike Epps once again shook Hollywood when he remarried Kira Robinson, the Emmy-winning producer of Iyanla Fix My Life. The wedding was held in June 2019 at a luxurious beachfront hotel in Newport Beach, California. The extravagant celebration drew a guest list of stars from Snoop Dogg and T.I. to Dougie Fresh. At the time, the press unanimously hailed it as a dream $1 million wedding, where Mike Epps confidently declared he had finally found true happiness after all the storms. The dazzling wedding photos, the extravagant white gown, the booming music, and the vows exchanged before hundreds of guests seemed to mark a blissful new chapter in Mike's life. But that glow didn't last long. Just months later, social media erupted with strange signals. Kira Robinson suddenly deleted a large number of photos with her husband on Instagram, leaving puzzling gaps. At times, she posted cryptic updates about disappointment and trust being tested. Small details, but enough to fuel heated speculation. Rumors of cracks in the marriage spread quickly. Was Mike Epps once again repeating the mistakes of the past? Was the multi-million-dollar star still unable to escape the shadow of romantic scandals and marital instability? The truth was never confirmed. Epps and Kira chose silence, letting the public guess. Yet that silence only made people believe even more that behind the glamorous facade, this so-called dream marriage was showing deep fractures. Yet another bitter irony was exposed. Mike Epps lived in ultimate luxury while at the same time being dragged into accusations of debt and never-ending financial disputes. Lavish lifestyle and accusations of debt. When people think of Mike Epps, they think of flaunted wealth. The media once featured his life with Michelle McCain in a $3.4 million USD mansion in Encino, California. The home stretched over 630 square meters, boasting 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a private movie theater with a bar, 2 libraries, a wine cellar, and a sparkling pool in the backyard. It was the picture-perfect million-dollar home of a Hollywood star. But that was far from his only property. Epps reportedly owned up to 10 properties in Indiana plus real estate in Atlanta, where he had even bought up and renovated an entire block of old houses. His car collection was equally luxurious. A gleaming Rolls-Royce high-end Mercedes and the latest Cadillacs, everything painting the portrait of a comedian living life in full extravagance. Yet alongside this flashy image came troubling headlines about financial strain and massive debt. Divorce filings revealed that Mike Epps owed the IRS a staggering $2.6 million USD in unpaid taxes. The revelation stunned the public. How could a star who spent hundreds of thousands on mansions and luxury cars be haunted by tax debt notices? The media pounced on the contradiction. Tabloids splashed headlines like Mike Epps rolls into parties in a Royce, but crushed by million-dollar tax bills. Industry outlets argued that Epps's showy lifestyle was a double-edged sword. It built the image of a successful star, but also pushed him into crippling financial pressure behind the scenes. The Encino mansion, the fleet of luxury cars, and the properties spread across multiple states all stood as a reflection of his climb to the top. But they also became proof that extravagance can easily turn into a burden, especially when faced with millions in tax debt. In the eyes of the public, Mike Epps's image was now clouded by a bitter contradiction, a comedian living in luxury, yet shackled by the cold, unforgiving weight of debt. Money troubles had already shaken Mike Epps's reputation. But few knew that even during the peak of his career, he was fighting a far more silent enemy: cocaine. Cocaine addiction and regret. On the All the Smoke podcast in 2024, Mike Epps shocked the public when he confessed, "I was addicted. I was in hell. Most of the movies people love I filmed while I was high on cocaine." The admission landed like a bombshell, exposing the truth behind the performances that made audiences laugh. He recalled mornings before shooting all about the Benjamins sitting in Ice Cube's trailer, crying uncontrollably because he couldn't control himself. Ice Cube, his friend and close collaborator, had to pull him back from the edge. "Mike, wipe your tears. You're a king. Don't destroy yourself like this." According to Epps, cocaine wasn't just a drug, it was a psychological crutch to cope with Hollywood's pressure. As fame grew and peers signed multi-million-dollar deals, he was haunted by survivor's remorse, the guilt of succeeding while many of his friends from the same streets were either locked behind bars or dead from violence and drugs. That inner conflict pushed him toward cocaine, a temporary escape that soon turned into a chain. Epps admitted he had collapsed in dressing rooms and shed tears right on film sets. He regretted deeply, "I destroyed myself just to get more attention from people." Those tears in the dark stood in stark contrast to the joyful image he projected under the spotlight. Looking back, Epps called it the darkest chapter of his life. But unlike financial or marital scandals that could be hidden with cocaine, he chose to admit it publicly. As he put it, "The truth, no matter how painful, is the medicine." Thanks to the intervention of friends, especially Ice Cube, along with therapy and community work, Mike Epps slowly escaped the spiral. Opening a free boxing gym for young people in Indianapolis and rebuilding old neighborhoods were not just social projects, but his way of seeking redemption, offering the next generation a chance not to repeat his mistakes. From an artist who once made the world laugh to a man weeping in a trailer because of cocaine, Mike Epps carries scars that may never fully heal. And it is those scars that make his life story more complex than any role he has ever played on screen. But those pressures were only the beginning. Before Hollywood could even shine a light on his tax debts and flashy lifestyle, Mike Epps plunged himself into an even more dangerous spiral: legal trouble. And this time, the headlines that filled the papers were not about movies, but about guns. Legal scandal and firearms. A stain repeated the first incident. The airport shock of 2017. In April 2017, American media exploded with reports Mike Epps was detained at Indianapolis Airport after security officers discovered a fully loaded handgun in his carry-on luggage. According to the report, Epps claimed he had accidentally left the weapon in his bag after performing in the city. But that excuse did little to calm the storm. The story spread instantly across TMZ Bet and dozens of outlets. Police confiscated the gun, and Epps was released after paying an administrative fine. On social media, the phrase "Mike Epps gun at airport" became a trending topic. Fans split into two camps. Some defended him, calling it a careless mistake, while others blasted him, insisting a Hollywood star should know better than to carry a loaded gun into a public space. History repeats. Accident or habit? 2019. One might think the 2017 ordeal was a wake-up call. But in March 2019, Mike Epps was once again caught with a fully loaded handgun in his carry-on at Indianapolis International Airport. TSA agents reported that the weapon was found in his bag loaded and ready, and it was immediately seized. The repeat offense turned the story from a momentary lapse into a possible pattern. The media leaned heavily on the irony: a man who made millions laugh in Next Friday and The Hangover was now showing up in crime reports with a gun as his co-star. Public outrage. The public reaction the second time was far harsher. Headlines screamed, "Mike Epps arrested again for gun at airport. History repeats itself. Comedy star turns the airport into a scandal stage." On Twitter, fans mocked, "He brings laughter to the screen but brings guns to the airport." Others expressed concern. If this is a habit, it's far too dangerous for him and for everyone around him. In both cases, Epps avoided heavy sentencing thanks to cooperation fines and proof that the weapon had not been discharged. But the damage to his image was lasting. Entertainment commentators labeled it a recurring stain, a shadow trailing his fame that would never fully disappear. And bitterly, the repetition of these two incidents etched itself as a milestone in his career. From a multi-million-dollar comedy star, Mike Epps had unwillingly become the lead in what the American press dubbed "from Hollywood laughter to airport scandal." Career fallout. When scandals hit both wallet and reputation, Mike Epps quickly paid the price for his mistakes. Shows were canceled. Deals went downhill. According to TMZ and BET, after the 2017 arrest, several stand-up comedy shows across the Midwest were quietly postponed or canceled without explanation. While Epps's camp never confirmed a direct link, the entertainment press believed his name being tied to the phrase "airport gun arrest" scared off some promoters. The 2019 repeat hit even harder. At the time, Epps was promoting new television projects and a stand-up tour. Media outlets noted the clash. How could a fun-loving, relatable comedian reconcile with being arrested twice for carrying guns? While Epps still held on to some big contracts, rumors swirled that a few film offers were quietly withdrawn in the wake of the scandal. Damage to his image, from funny star to a controversial name. The biggest price wasn't the fines, it was his public image. Mike Epps was once celebrated as a defining face of black comedy, adored by millions for his role as Day-Day in Next Friday and his antics in The Hangover. But after the airport incidents, whenever his name appeared in the press, the words attached weren't hilarious or stand-up genius. They were airport gun arrest. What made the story even more dramatic was the irony. At the very same time Mike Epps was earning millions from films and comedy shows, he was landing in legal trouble over what was framed as a careless mistake. On one side was the spotlight and the roar of applause. On the other was the image of him at an airport checkpoint where security officers seized a loaded gun from his carry-on bag. The guns at the airport tied him to the law, but it was his words on stage and off that turned Mike Epps into a public enemy within the comedy world. Professional clashes. Darkness. Within the comedy scene. The Kevin Hart attack. Spark of a scandal. In 2014, Mike Epps sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry when he bluntly declared on live radio that Kevin Hart is not funny. The short statement echoed for years. At the time, Hart had already risen as Hollywood's new box office king, headlining hits like Think Like a Man, 2012, Ride Along 2014, and Get Hard 2015, each grossing hundreds of millions of dollars. Epps's remark was seen as a slap in the face during Hart's peak, and it immediately ignited a firestorm of controversy. Hart's fans lashed out, accusing Epps of jealousy for failing to reach the same global status. Major outlets like Complex and Billboard covered the feud, turning the clash between the two comedians into one of the hottest topics in entertainment. Public feud, social media, becomes the battleground. The conflict didn't end with words on the radio. On Twitter, Mike Epps and Kevin Hart traded blows repeatedly. Hart mocked Epps, saying he was just starting drama to get attention, while Epps hinted that Hart's success came from Hollywood backing. These spats split fans down the middle. Some defended Hart as their idol, while others praised Epps for saying things no one else dared to. Within the comedy industry, whispers grew that this wasn't just a difference in opinion, but the product of deeper rivalry. Kevin Hart had become a global superstar, landing multi-million-dollar Netflix deals and hosting massive events, while Mike Epps remained tied to supporting comedic roles and smaller stand-up tours. Rumors of professional jealousy fueled the narrative, painting Epps as sharp-edged and confrontational. Colleagues on guard, the price of brutal honesty. And it wasn't just Kevin Hart. Several comedians also remarked that Mike Epps was too blunt, even harsh. His biting remarks could make audiences laugh, but for colleagues they easily turned friendliness into hostility. In an industry already rife with competition, Epps's no-filter persona became a double-edged sword. It made him stand out, but also left him isolated in certain circles. After years of scandals and stumbles, Mike Epps began to reappear with a different image, a man seeking redemption, trying to return to his roots. Efforts to salvage his image, from scandal to community hero. In 2018, local media praised Epps when he announced his Buying Back the Block project, purchasing and renovating the very row of houses where he grew up in Indianapolis. 6 old homes were restored, not to be sold, but to preserve family memories and rebuild a community. The press called it an act of healing the past, while Epps declared, "I want kids here to know that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going." He didn't stop there. Epps also opened a free boxing gym for local youth in his hometown. Their teens could train, build discipline, and most importantly, stay away from the street life that once trapped him as a boy. Local newspapers hailed him as an inspiration, a living example that even a world-famous comedian could become a positive role model for the next generation. In 2020, Mike Epps joined singer Babyface on the board of directors of the Madam Walker Legacy Center, the cultural landmark tied to the first black woman millionaire in America. This was more than a ceremonial role. It signaled that Epps wanted to claim a place in his community beyond being just a comedian. However, public opinion was not unified. Some saw these actions as proof of true change, a more mature Mike Epps, who knew how to return to his roots and contribute to society. But others were skeptical, believing it was nothing more than a PR stunt to clean up his name after a string of personal scandals. They asked, is this genuine compassion or just a campaign to polish his image? And it was in that divide that Mike Epps's journey of redemption became complicated. Would the public be willing to forgive the past, or would the stains forever remain? The shadow that haunted this comedian, Mike Epps, stepped into 2025 with a series of new headlines. But alongside projects that had been anticipated for 2 decades, his current life remained complicated, full of contradictions and unpredictability. At 54, Mike Epps is both a husband and the father of 7 children, while still a comedian struggling to maintain his position in a ruthless industry. At the same time, he is a man constantly haunted by his scandal-filled past. Mike Epps. Today, from multi-million-dollar clown to a shaky journey under Hollywood's spotlight. In 2019, Mike Epps remarried Kyra Robinson. After 6 years together, Epps and Kyra had 2 children, their daughter Indiana Rose, born in 2020, and their son Michael Jr., born in 2021. In addition, Epps has 5 children from previous relationships: Bria, Michaela, Mariah, Madison, and River. Bria, his eldest daughter, born in 1993, is already married with a child, making Epps a grandfather. Mariah is currently studying abroad in Paris with the dream of becoming a lawyer, while Madison continues to excel in her studies in the United States. On his personal social media, Mike Epps often shares everyday moments, hosting birthday parties for his young children, joining his wife in taking their kids to community events, or spending cozy evenings together as a family. From once being criticized as an irresponsible father, Mike Epps is now trying to show a different image, one of closeness, care, and placing family as his anchor. But just as audiences begin to see a more mature Mike Epps, debates about money and his scandalous past resurface, raising the question, has he truly changed, or is this just another mask? Net worth. The surprising reality. With a career spanning more than 3 decades, appearing in hits like Next Friday, All About the Benjamins, And now a familiar face on Netflix's sitcom, The Upshaws' Mike Epps has clearly built up a considerable fortune. However, as of the latest 2025 estimates, his net worth stands at only around 6 million USD. It's not a small number, but it is surprising when compared to the lavish image Epps once projected: a 3.4 million USD mansion in Encino, his collection of Rolls-Royce Cadillac and Mercedes, along with real estate projects in Atlanta and Indianapolis. That 6 million USD figure becomes even more controversial when placed against his financial disputes in the past. The divorce with Michelle McCain, accusations of late support payments, and the multi-million-dollar tax debt once reported by the media. To the public, Mike Epps is a living paradox called a multi-million-dollar star, yet often portrayed as a man constantly struggling with financial responsibility. But if money has created contradictions, then film has given him a chance at redemption with the project fans have been waiting for over 2 decades. Last Friday, a promise after 20 years of waiting. No project in Mike Epps' career has stirred more anticipation than Last Friday, the long-awaited sequel to Ice Cube's legendary franchise. Rumors began as far back as 2002, but for 2 decades, scripts, funding, and production schedules were endlessly delayed. Fans even dubbed it the Last Friday Curse. By March 2025, Mike Epps finally confirmed that Last Friday had been given the green light. Ice Cube and the team had completed the crucial steps, and the news immediately exploded across social media. Fans rejoiced at the thought of Day-Day Mike's legendary character returning to the big screen. Yet joy came with doubt. After 20 years, could Last Friday truly meet the towering expectations of its loyal fanbase? Or would it end up as a pale shadow of the earlier films? And more importantly, does Mike Epps still have the star power to carry such an iconic role? While those questions remain, Mike Epps has chosen to prove his worth in the most familiar way, by returning to stand up the stage that first made him famous. We Them Ones, cementing his stand-up legacy. Alongside film, Mike Epps has never abandoned his roots in stand-up comedy. His We Them Ones tour launched in 2024 and continuing into 2025 is the clearest proof. The tour brought together some of the brightest names in black comedy, including country Wayne Lil Duval and HaHa Davis. On stage, Epps was both host and star, blending sharp satire with everyday humor. Each show became a laughter feast, filling major cities across America. Outlets like Axios and Billboard called it proof that Epps still holds a firm place in stand-up despite age and scandal. Tens of thousands of tickets sold out within days, showing that the name Mike Epps still carries a special pull. Yet the shadows remain. 2 arrests for carrying guns at airports, fiery clashes with Kevin Hart, and financial disputes after divorce all still hang in the air whenever Mike Epps' name comes up. The public loves him for his comedy, but they also watch with curiosity. Are there still secrets left untold? Can Epps rise above those shadows, or will he forever live with them as part of his fate? From Hollywood's multi-million-dollar clown, Mike Epps has become a symbol of contradiction, fame and scandal, glory and darkness, existing side by side. And the biggest question remains unanswered: will he continue on as a comedy legend, or will he become the latest tragedy in Hollywood, swallowed by scandal?
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.